Okay, so I'm making this video to talk about UObjectHook and properties. So when we're talking about a character mesh, we're talking about a physical character like this. So imagine the head and the weapons.
So this is a representation of what you'd see in game. So if you attach with the character mesh, the actual center of gravity can be anywhere from the bottom, the middle, the top. This is especially important in third-person games. But you can see if you attach it to the wrong place, you'll get a lot of movement with the weapon that you've tried to attach, because the whole body is attached and any animations also are inherited. So what we want to do is we really want to find a property. Now, we really want to find a gun property, because the gun property, created by devs, a lot of them are named similarly, will only affect the gun and will decouple the character mesh from the gun. So this is what you're aiming to look for in the UObjectHook settings. So I'm just going to talk about components and their importance generally. So there may be some tutorials on how to do 6DoF motion controls, but a lot of them will tell you to immediately look in the list of components that is under the acknowledged pawn as soon as you open them. But what you'll find, like my example with the model, is that yes, you will find a gun with that list of components, but that's a list of components of the entire pawn. So if you attach to that gun in red that I've highlighted there, you are going to inherit all the animations, and you hiding the player model, it's still kind of there. And imagine me moving that model like I did before. It's being moved, and any animations it's playing are going to affect the gun. So what we want to do is find something that's just related to the gun in particular. And it is a good way of highlighting the actual character mesh and removing it, because that's normally pretty static. But what isn't static tends to be things like power-ups. So you might get a new hat, for example. It could be potentially that you get some kind of power-up or upgrade, and that list of components may change as you play the game. Now, all these kind of things, gameplay mechanics, will be created by game developers, and typically they will make properties governing them. So the properties will be listed under that big list, and they'll be alphabetical from A to Z, or Z for Americans. If you read through those when you first open a game and you're using UObjectHook, you'll typically find that game developers have written properties that make sense around the mechanics. So in a lot of shooting games, you'll have multiple guns, and they'll have a property designed around switching gun. So you may want to switch from your main weapon to your secondary weapon. Now that property solely governs the gun in particular that I was highlighting before. And if you find it, it's normally called something like current gun, current weapon, current equipment. Now that will have its own list of components like the pawn did, but you'll typically find it's a lot fewer and mainly just governs the weapon itself. So if you don't hide the character mesh and you attach to a gun property, you'll see that the character arms stay the same, but the gun is decoupled from that character. So in my example at the start where I moved the model, it would move the gun. This, you're only moving the gun, and it will feel a lot less floaty. So just to summarize, if we attach and use the properties of the pawn, and we don't just focus immediately on the components that are in that first drop down, we can remove the animation from the character affecting the gun model, so we don't have as many floaty animations or cause any problems that way. The next benefit, if we're able to find a good property where you're carrying weapons, new weapons will automatically attach. If you look to some funny videos of Stray and people attaching the cat and holding it while playing the game, that's kind of what you're doing if you're using those components at the start and attaching them. Your kind of character will be flipping around behind it. And that can cause some problems, cause some bugs, so generally try and avoid that. The next one is there can be some upgrades, power-ups. In Aliens, for example, there's a property called class mesh, and you can turn that off and turn it invisible, and that will hide all things like the medic power-ups, power armor, and you don't have to keep going to the components because that changes depending on which class you have. That will pop in and out, but that will just constantly hide your class mesh. So properties are a very powerful thing, and please don't ignore them when you're looking at making your 6DOF profiles.